very interesting take on the archetype, going for 3 copies of Patermander, as he likes to call it. Basically not worrying about playing any of those black spells, just relying on Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning to do the heavy lifting in the removal spell slot. On your right, we got Keaton Wood playing Miracles.
Yeah, so this is Miracles. Doesn't necessarily have a stock list. It's kind of been shifting around ever since the Sensei's Divining top ban recently. He's trying out a couple mission briefings this weekend, a couple main deck Spell Pierce, which is a pretty interesting element. Has 2 Mentors and an Entreat the Angel for win conditions in the main.
Yeah, and Mission Briefing is not my favorite card in the world, I'll say that. But I'll also say that Surveil, the mechanic, is significantly stronger in a format like Legacy than it is in something like Standard or even Modern. The deeper the format goes, the better something like Scry or Surveil is going to be.
Yeah, Keaton was on the play. You see an Island, Brainstorm, kept those so far, but he has a Flooded Strand to reset it if he wants it. Collins started with Volcanic Island into Delver of Secrets. That's transforming on the second turn for him. He'll attack for 3.
Yeah, Delver of Secrets, one of the strongest starts here from any Delver deck against Miracles, allowing you to do a lot of damage early on. Austin Collins hoping that Delver of Secrets is able to deal a lot of damage over the next few turns.
Wood down to 17. Check this out, though. I love this indignation from Collins about putting the Delver in the sleeve backwards.
Yeah, you know, when you're 16 or 15 or whatever, you can just do whatever you want.
I ain't got time for that.
Dude, he made so, you know how ecstatic I would be to make $10,000 by like top 4 splitting the Invitational?
You can buy a lot of Gatorade with that. And what I mean is at that age, I would waste every dollar.
Yes. You know how many slushies you can get?
A lot of beef jerky.
Yeah.
In that purse.
A lot of Mountain Dew.
Scalding Tarn will reset that Brainstorm, finds a basic island. Collins to 19. Sometimes you do have to be worried about these Miracles decks hitting you with back to basics. They can main deck that one sometimes.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of playing 2-colored Delver instead of 3-colored Delver. You actually get to play a lot of basics, so you can play around those really potent cards that would normally be punishing to your 3-color mana base.
Here's a Ponder as the follow-up. Collins going to take a look at 3 more. Doesn't seem to be in love with them.
Now, of course, if you're curious about either of these players' deck lists, if they're not already, they should be on Cardboard Live here shortly. Cardboard Live, this brand new extension we've been using here on Season 1 of the SCG Tour. Really great way to be able to showcase all of these deck lists, and so you can follow along at home, even if your opponent or one of the players is playing a foreign card, for example, a Japanese foil Terminus, as you see here. You can take a look and see exactly what that card does. 6 mana, puts all creatures from play onto the bottom of their owner's decks, and has a miracle cost of just 1 white, and it is the reason to play this miracle strategy.
And that's exactly the cost Wood will pay. It's 1. This Terminus was floating off that Brainstorm, so what you can do, Miracle Trigger on the stack, you can announce you're going to cast a spell, cracks his Flooded Strand, finds the white mana to pay for that. Austin's going to catch that with Force of Will, pitching Daze, and that's going to resolve.
Yeah, and this is here Austin just recognizing that Delver is really his only form of pressure at the moment. Decides to burn a Force Will on a Terminus just to protect that Delver, so he can keep chunking in here for 3 points of damage. These Delver decks function off of a pretty low land count, and here we're seeing Austin Collins, going to use this Wasteland, and probably in a lot better shape than Keaton Wood, just because Keaton needs an overall more or higher amount of mana.
Yeah, you generally don't want to expose yourself too much to Wasteland. And an interesting element is that historically, these Izzet Delver decks usually play Price of Progress. So you can kind of get your opponent a little bit with the Wasteland.
Right, and this build from Austin Collins is a lot different than any of the Izzet Delver decks we've seen in the past. This deck looks a lot more like something you would expect to see in Modern, where a Delver deck is a little more focused on a tempo game plan, whereas an Izzet Delver deck in Legacy usually would revolve around a lot more burn spells. Like you said, those Price of Progress, main deck or sideboard a lot of times can just do a ton of damage, but here Austin Collins utilizing that traditional Delver package of Wasteland and Daze to punish people early in the game for trying to interact with Delver Secrets.
Aberration knocks Wood down to 13. Collins will round out the turn with shuffling a Ponder. He'll draw and pass. See what Wood can do from here. He used Accumulated Knowledge in response to the Wasteland, drew a card. He'll be starting his turn here with Preordain.
Yeah, the first accumulated knowledge kind of stinks. The second one is quite good. Third and fourth one are literally bonkers magic cards.
Busted.
You always got to get that first one out the way. It's a tough pill to swallow, but for those control mages who've been playing Magic for quite a long time, accumulated knowledge is an oldie but a goodie. Recently made popular again by one Andrew Cuneo, noted control mage.
You know what's a nice way to get the first one in the graveyard? Surveilling it with your mission briefing.
It's true. That's a good point.
Aberration rumbles across again, and Wood will fetch down to 9 after taking that hit. Another Tundra.
Yeah, not really trying to play around Wasteland. Could just be fetching a bunch of basics, but may need double blue as well as double white at some point. So, second AK accumulated knowledge gonna rattle 2 cards off unless Austin Collins wants to interact with it.
Juicy target for a counterspell already at this point. Though you do have to be mindful depending on how many counterspells you have, right? You know, the Miracles deck has a lot of heavy hitters.
Right. I mean, if Austin definitely doesn't want to force will this, I think you just let him draw cards. But if he has a Spell Pierce, I think there's a fine spot to fire it off. Daze here is also pretty good. You're trading effectively a Daze for 2 fresh cards. And while Austin is leaving himself a little bit vulnerable to something like Jace the Mind Sculptor here, there's a chance that Keaton just doesn't have it, and that's okay too.
Yeah, Daze was the spell. Wood will play a fetch land and cast Council's Judgment. Austin also had Spell Pierce. He'll Spell Pierce that one.
Yeah, and this is just really well sequenced and well played by Collins. Gave Keaton the idea that the shields were basically down, kind of burning that Daze. But with the Spell Pierce to take care of the Council's Judgment, this is not looking so good for Keaton. He's going down to 6, and with 7 burn spells in Collins' deck that do 3 damage, it's not going to be that hard to cobble 2 of them together.
Yeah, and there's been no signs so far that Wood has had a Swords to Plowshares in hand. He's going to have to find something like that. You got to clean up this Delver. Wood also getting into that life total threshold where Lightning Bolts can really cleanly just round this game out. And Wood's actually going to fight that Spell Pierce with Force of Will. He'll go to 8, but he does get the Aberration for his trouble. Yeah,
I mean, that's a reasonable fight to partake in just because his life total is so low, but it does use his last few cards, and you see he has 4 lands on the battlefield, no cards in hand. Austin Collins only has 1 land on the battlefield, but a slew of cards in hand, and still able to cast most of them. And that's one of the draws to playing a Delver deck, because you're able to operate on a lot fewer mana sources than the control opponents.
Collins starts his turn by firing off Brainstorm, drew Delver of Secrets, Chain Lightning, Fetch Land. All of that's pretty likable, honestly. We'll see him resolve the Brainstorm here. Can reset the deck if he wants to.
Yeah, he's probably going to put Island back and then fetch, but decides to guarantee that Delver flip and not crack a fetch land this turn. I guess he was fine with that extra land, and he's going to play these next few turns in such a way that hopefully he's able to capitalize on that Brainstorm, just like not shuffling anything away,
Yeah, so there was Delver, but Wood now did have the Swords of Plowshares, immediately takes care of that one. Collins will crack that Scalding Tarn now to 19 after drawing for turn.
It'd be interesting to see if Collins actually goes for a Volcanic or not. Decides to go for it. I thought he might get a basic Mountain so that he could have 2 red in case he draws more burn spells and can just throw a flurry at them at the opponent's head. But decides, back to basics is pretty hard to beat here no matter what I do. Wow, what a top deck here. Yeah, Keaton Wood.
There was True to Nemesis, another Council's Judgment, but how about Pateramander?
Oh, yeah, and with a graveyard full of these interactive instants and sorceries as well as the cantrip effects, that is effectively a Tombstalker, a 2-mana 5/5 flyer, and with Keaton Wood at 8 life, just a Chain Lightning here is going to be enough to get the job done if he doesn't find a removal spell here for that Terramander.
Keaton had maintained this uncracked fetch land, fires off Brainstorm. There's 2 Force of Wills here. He'll be able to shuffle those away. I'm not positive, but the last card might have been a Swords to Plowshares.
I mean, if it was, then he's going to be able to survive for another turn.
Passing turn. It looks like one of those past turns where it's like, I have effects at some point. Not sure on that. He's going to crack this fetch land, though. He's up to something.
Yeah, I mean, Snapcaster Mage, Mission Briefing, either of those cards would be good enough to combine with that Source of Plowshares. But that puts him in a spot where he actually is vulnerable to Daze if the last card in Collins' hand is Daze. But I have a feeling that last card is a Chain Lightning, and Collins was shuffled away, some other useless card a few turns ago.
Wood falls to 7 off of that fetch land. This seems to be in response to Terramander adapting, and Mission Briefing was the card.
Yeah, mission briefing here. He's going to get Surveil 3, so he's going to get to kind of fix his next draw as well as, or Surveil 2, excuse me, and to fix his next draw while also making sure that he gets to effectively flash back on that Source of Plowshares to kill the Pteramander. Collins here going to adapt again in response, so he ends up gaining 5 life, but the damage is still done as the life total is mostly irrelevant here for Izzy Delver.
Briefing, surveilled away a Spell Pierce, kept the Ponder on top, so that Plow was good. Collins just has nothing in his turn. We go back Keaton's way. Here's that Ponder. Preordain, Basic Plains, Brainstorm.
Yeah, I think I like keeping here since you're not under any pressure, and he can basically keep the Preordain, bottom the Plains, draw the Brainstorm, and then probably just hold the Brainstorm for next turn.
Yeah, I'm into all of that. You might even just go Preordain, Brainstorm on the top, leave the Plains there, Preordain next turn.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so he keeps off the Ponder and passes. Go Collins' way, cast Preordain to start his turn. See Ponder, Wasteland are the cards. That Wasteland actually isn't bad.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. A Wasteland off the top here protects you from Jace the Mind Sculptor, protects you from something like a Brainstorm or a Ponder into a Monastery Mentor. Austin Collins here trying to close this game out, though, so he may want to just bottom both and look for some way to actually close the game. If he has a Burn Spell in hand, he just needs like one creature to get in a few points of chip damage, and then he'll be set. But goes for that Wasteland to keep Keaton off of a potential Jason Mind Sculptor this turn. Let's see what he has for follow-up.
So we know that the hand is very likely to be Preordained Brainstorm here with the basic Plains on top of the deck. Now after being Wasteland, that Plains is more inviting. He does need some action, though.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But he doesn't really want to cast Brainstorm because if the top cards don't yield a fetch land, the Brainstorm is pretty bad. It kind of locks you out of the next few draws. So if he Preordains first, he's kind of stuck. But if he Brainstorms and then Preordains, he can actually put the 2 dead cards on the bottom. But you also just don't have to play anything right now. You can just kind of wait. Maybe you draw a Terminus over the next few turns, and you need to put it back on top of the deck to clean out one of those creatures.
Play was Preordain, went top, bottom, kept that basic Plains, plays that for turn. We go back Collins' way. Here's a Ponder. I believe there's a Wasteland in that. One of the 2 cards in Collins' hand is Basic Mountain. That one currently no good.
Yeah, Basic Mountain and probably a Burn Spell just kind of lingering. And Collins here going to keep the Ponder, though. Looks like he found another Burn Spell, or is that Young Peasy?
It is Young Pyromancer. Basic Mountain, and he's going to fire off that Chain Lightning he's been holding. That should whack Wood to 4 and make an Elemental token.
Yep, and this is going to threaten Keaton Wood's life total pretty significantly. 3 points of power, Keaton down to 4 life. If either of these creatures is able to connect next turn, that's going to put Keaton Wood in range of any Burn Spell except for Forkbolt off the top for Collins.
Wood draws for turn. This will be a fresh card. Still has that Brainstorm.
Yeah, but again, he's just playing it super close to the chest. He found a Source of Plowshares, but as I said, if either of these creatures is able to connect, that's going to mean that any Burn Spell off the top is going to be lethal.
Wood will start the turn with Brainstorm here. You see he's thinking about keeping 2 cards, one of them being Swords of Plowshares.
Right, and he can take care of the Young Pyromancer. Austin Collins' shields are down. He has no cards in hand. But the real question is, does Keaton Wood have a way to get himself above 3 life on the next attack?
It can be quite tough to gain life, certainly in the Legacy format. Source of Plowshares on your own creature, frequently the plan, that's what you need to do. But no creatures in hand. He's going to fire off Source of Plowshares on that Young Pyromancer. Ooh, and how about this for a second card?
Awesome.
Accumulated Knowledge number 3.
Yeah, and as the game goes longer, you're starting to see just how powerful Accumulated Knowledge can be. And that Accumulated Knowledge likely going to push him further to potentially even drawing the 4th copy. And 2 mana, draw for cards, is not a card that exists in Magic.
Elemental knocked Wood down to 4. Among those 3 cards, Monastery Mentor and Force of Will were in the holdings. Apologies, 3 is life total. Here's Monastery Mentor.
Now, this one can potentially close the game before Austin Collins actually able to draw a Burn Spell. And if Keaton Wood actually has Blue Spell plus Force of Will, it might be a little too much for Austin to overcome. This Monastery Mentor can close the game really quickly, especially on the back of all of those cantrip effects that the Miracles deck tends to play.
Yeah, mentally, it's going to hold off that Elemental token, I can tell you that much. And then it doesn't take long to make it just a clean win condition.
All right. Well, Keaton Wood needs to cobble together a lot of damage here over the next few turns to make sure that Austin Collins is unable to draw one of those potent burn spells. Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning. He has 6 left.
So it's a 4-bolt, 3-chain. That's the burn suite for the deck.
Yeah, and he has 1 Vapor Snag and 1 Fork Bolt, but those don't quite get the job done.
Wood didn't have any action in his turn. Passes to Collins, just a Scalding Tarn for him.
I mean, there's a chance that he just has like Force Will, like a Preordain, and just doesn't want to burn it because of what it represents. But 2 mana here, tapping. If this is the 4th accumulated knowledge,
that would be so brutal.
Oh man, I don't know if Collins is going to be able to recover.
And I believe that Wood is actually holding on to a Source of Plowshares. He could use it proactively, but he's holding on to it in case he needs to Source of Plowshares his own creature and gain some life. I really like that.
Yeah, I love that too. Looks like Snapcaster here is going to flash back on a Preordain, and that's going to give Wood a Monastery Mentor token, one of those monks that also have prowess, which is the reason why Monastery Mentor is so good. Of course, making a Brian Koval token who won, I believe, the first invitational we ever had at SCGNY, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right. And that Preordain's going to keep 2 on top. Here's an attack for 3 with the Mentor. Collins' life total pretty high, though, knocked it down to 22 here.
Koval actually defeated Dan Fournier in the finals. He was here today, and Dan Fournier actually beat me in the semifinals. Brainstorm off the top for Collins. He's digging, looking for that burn spell. He found a bolt, but unbeknownst to him, Keaton Wood not only has a Source of Plowshares in hand, very likely also has a Force of Will and a blue card. So this is going to be tough to fight through, but he has a Spell Pierce. Let's see if he can do it.
Yeah, so here's Lightning Bolt, targets Keaton Wood. How does Keaton want to respond here?
This might have been a bit of an aggressive Lightning Bolt here from Collins, because he's going to go for Spell Pierce here.
So here is Force of Will. That'll knock Wood to 2, make a monk off the Mentor.
But I don't think he's going to win this fight.
Yeah, there's Spell Pierce. We can see if we get confirmation. It seems like the Mentor trigger has resolved, though, so this prowess seems to have happened. Yeah, I see the monk token in play, so that's more life off of the Swords of Plowshares, which is significant.
Right, and this Swords of Plowshares here is going to effectively gain 3 life while breaking even on tokens. Now there might have been some communication issues or whatever here. Just people, they're just making sure they get everything right here. And Wood looks like he's actually going to be targeting his Monastery Mentor for the highest amount of life gain possible. But he could go for just 1 less life, put himself up to 5 by targeting that initial Brian Koval token, which of course is pumped by the Force of Will as well as the Source of Plowshare itself.
So there's another monk token. That Source of Plowshare is going to resolve.
And he's put himself all the way up to 6. Collins going to need 1 more burn spell to get the job done.
And we'll go back Wood's way. At 3 life, 3 monk tokens in tow, and a Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, and the monk tokens do represent quite a bit of damage with their prowess ability. So Keaton not quite out of the woods yet, though. Sitting at 3 life. Still vulnerable to a burn spell off the top.
Keaton never quite gets out of the woods.
Oh, come on. I didn't even mean to do that.
I did. Here's an attack with 2 monk tokens and the Snapcaster Mage.
Keaton playing this one super snug, trying to make sure he doesn't lose to a burn spell. If he has another Source of Plowshares, it's really good news for him. If he has another Force of Will and a blue card, it's better news for him.
That foil Snapcaster Mage is fierce right now.
Wow, it looks awesome.
That's some intense aura happening.
Yeah.
Crack off the Scalding Tarn for Collins. 5 mana sources in play now.
Yeah, this is interesting why he would be fetching here. I guess maybe he knew the top card, but just wants to give a fresh look at the top 3. And if he's able to find a Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning, he might actually steal this game. You know, he was really far ahead for a long time, but the Miracles Act just kind of scraping by, eventually lands Monastery Mentor. Those accumulated knowledges starting to bury Collins, but he might be able to steal this one with that burn spell, and you can see the reason why these Delver decks tend to slant a little bit red for the removal suite.
At least 2 of those cards off the ponder with fetch lands. Collins quickly shuffles that one, but then just draws a fetch land after shuffling. We'll go back Wood's way.
The classic Magic Online bug. All right, Jason Mind Sculptor here going to be cast for Keaton Wood. Probably going to minus on the Ross Merriam token and then attack for quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, it all seems reasonable. This triggers prowess on the monks. So this attack here could be for 8 points, as you mentioned. -1 on the elemental token, pretty inviting. But Jace the Mind Sculptor on a table like this, I actually wouldn't mind to see +2 on Collins.
+2 on Collins. What are you, a coward?
Yes.
Yikes.
So is Wood.
Yeah. Now, this is perhaps a bit of inexperience from Austin Collins not playing the fetch land he drew for turn. He can no longer reset the top card of his deck. And, I mean, even if he's able to draw Brainstorm, you still want a fetch land on the battlefield so that you can actually, shuffle if you do draw that other Brainstorm.
And Wood just lets Collins keep the card. Here's an attack for 6 with the monks.
And we talked earlier about how Jonathan Rossum was younger than some of the lands in his deck. Austin Collins is about half the age of some of these volcanic islands.
I think that Collins is younger than the Unglued Island.
No way. Shut up. Come on.
Yo, I think that might be true.
Oh, my God. You're right. Oh, no.
Ooh.
I think Unglued came out in, like, 2001, and I'm pretty sure Austin Collins was born in, 2004, 2005.
Here's a Forked Bolt. That is not the one Collins really wanted. Target Snapcaster Mage and 1 point to Wood, but the Elemental is just shy of getting there.
Is it? Oh, it is. I'm stupid.
Yeah. Can't do 3 damage with the Forked Bolt.
Yeah, but he does get him to 1, which means fetch lands are turned off. So if a Jace brainstorms, there's a chance he kind of locks him for a turn. But, I mean, you're right. The Forked Bolt is less than 3 damage, so it's just slightly short of being able to kill Keaton.
So here's something I really like about Austin Collins. Getting into Modern, getting into Legacy, it's something that he's kind of like, getting into the format. He's a younger player, probably started with Standard, Booster Draft, that kind of thing. Sometimes will not necessarily optimize card interactions the first time he sees them. However, plays Flooded Swain for this turn. Now he's covered against that Jace. He understands this stuff. Once he sees it, he's like, all right, that was a mistake. I'm good to go this turn.
Oh, yeah. No, it's really heads-up player. Here, Keaton's just going to go for the win. If he can string together a couple of cantrips, he can make those Brian Koval Monk tokens into 4/4s and attack for 12. Right now, they're 2/2s from the Ponder. Let's see if he's got 2 more instant or sorceries here to follow up.
A quick shuffle off of that Ponder. Is that a 4-card hand?
Well, might be a little more here if that's accumulated knowledge.
Is that a 7-card hand? Attack with 2 monks, though.
All right, so not quite lethal this turn, but a handful of cards, and I think he's got, I don't know if he actually has a way to protect himself from a lethal burn spell. He has Force Will on hand that I can see, but at 1 life and only 4 mana, he can't quite pay for it.
Yeah, that does not play here. Collins just passes back.
That's rough. Unable to find that burn spell when he had the window here. Seemed like there are a couple of, like, spell pierces and things in the Miracles deck, but outside of something like another Source of Plowshares, plus another instant, I don't think Keaton had a way to protect himself last turn, and Austin Collins is just slowly slipping away, and you're seeing just how easy it can be to miss by 1 turn and just ultimately fall because of it.
Yeah, here's a brainstorm from the Jace. Collins is at 7 at this point. Keaton looking at casting some kind of spell, I believe a Swords to Plowshares. He's going to think better of that. Just thinking about lining up some attacks before casting a spell. That's what he's going to do here. Entirely possible that he has lethal instants for, quote, pump spells on this turn.
Well, what he does have is a Swords of Plowshares that can gain him 2 life, and then he can use Force Will after that to protect himself.
Collins blocks. Wood's just no action here. Knock Collins a 6, trades with the Elemental token.
I think his hand is just super reactive, but I do think he has at least 1, maybe 2 copies of Force Will. But Collins, it looks like he has Bolt and Force Will and a blue card.
Yeah, there's Lightning Bolt. What can Wood do about this? How he sequences his reaction here is the whole game. Mission briefing is the response.
Okay. Collins here probably going to let that resolve. Because if he forces this, I mean, what's he going to cast here in response?
And it's going to be Force Pitching Days as Collins play.
Huh. Okay. So Keaton here, I think he's just, I mean, this is Austin being tapped out, right? So, or no cards left in hand. So Keaton has blue card, Force Will, Swords of Plowshares. He can plow his own token. And this is all with the triggers on the stack. Collins making sure that's abundantly clear, so he gains a little less life here off of the Swords of Plowshares.
Yeah, so it looks like Force Wheel resolves. Mission Briefing is countered. And here's Accumulated Knowledge. Now those monks will grow. 4 cards drawn for wood. That is the 4th knowledge. Here's Source of Plowshare on the monk token. That will functionally counter the lightning bolt.
Yeah, and he might even actually go up to 4 life or 5 life here and then down to 2. Because the mission briefing, he can let that trigger resolve before the bolt because it was cast in response.
Yeah.
So mission briefing, accumulated knowledge, Swords of Plowshares, all pumping it 3 times.
So up to 5, down to 2. Untaps with that monk token and the Jason Mind Sculptor.
I think Keaton might have actually played this game a little too closely, like a little too conservatively. Because now he's only got 1 monk token. The odds of him actually winning this turn are pretty small.
I don't know. He's starting with the Preordain. He's got a Jace the Mind Sculptor.
And he's already brainstormed with a Jace. But the problem is he only has 2 blue mana. So even if he casts 2 more blue cantrip effects, he's only going to be attacking for 4. And he might give Austin Collins 1 more shot at drawing a burn spell.
Here's Counterbalance.
I mean, that's a good one to have on top. Or if you have a 1 mana card on top, it's going to protect him.
Which he has a lot of control over.
Right, and he has a Ponder here, so if he's able to find a 1 mana card, he's going to keep it on top, but see what he gets.
So there was Ponder. He's going to attack with the Monk. Collins was at 5. This is for 4 here.
Oh, he drew it. You're at 1.
Force
he at 2?
Force.
Oh, he was at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, the life totals were just slightly off, but he was at 2 life, I believe.
Yeah, that one's going to go to wood. Anyway, up a game in the match here. These players are at 9-1 at the very top of the standings here. Austin Collins, some work to do. Is it Delver against Miracles?
Yeah, just a lot of really intricate interactions there that both players able to navigate pretty well. But you saw Austin Collins not playing the fetch land. The 1 turn that a Jace ticked up was able to strand him with kind of a dead card. And even though Austin Collins was able to eventually draw a couple of those burn spells to potentially try to close out the game with Keaton on such a low life total, Keaton able to use Swords of Plowshares in a defensive manner to target his own creatures, gain some life, and effectively invalidate those burn spells thanks to the prowess of the monk. Austin Collins here gonna need some help.
Yeah, so the sideboard for Austin Collins, 3 Abrade, really respecting Chalice of the Void this weekend. 3 Blood Moon, 3 Pyroblast, 2 Electrickery, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Surgical Extraction. You know, we see this time and again, those Pyroblasts, those are kind of the slam dunk here. How do you feel about Flusterstorm in a matchup like this?
I think it's pretty solid. If you combine that with a Brainstorm or Lightning Bolt, a lot of times you can use that as a 1-2 punch to counter a Terminus on early turns of the game, or if you've just like wastelanded a land or 2 to keep your opponent a little bit lower on the lands they have. Plus, if the Miracles deck is looking to do something like Brainstorm into a Terminus, a lot of times you're casting a second spell on that turn that you're miracling the Terminus.
So an interesting variable in how this matchup played out that it's more years ago now than I want to admit, but Monastery Mentor, right? Collins needs answers to that. How many of these Lightning Bolt sort of effects do you think he wants in his deck post sideboard?
I like 4 or 5. I think he's going to keep Vapor Snag since Vapor Snag can actually save one of his creatures from one of those sweeper effects. I think he's going to cut the Fork Bolt, probably 1 or 2 Chain Lightnings, maybe all 3, and just leaving a couple of Lightning Bolts to be able to potentially kill a Jace, but or finish off Keaton's life total at the end of things. But you don't want to draw too many of those burn spells early in the game. You need those to be actual threats like Pyromancer, Delver of Secrets, Terramander. I mean, we saw Austin Collins with a pretty stout draw early in that game, able to clock Keaton Wood all the way down to around 3 life and just not able to get to the finish line because Keaton was drawing so many cards with Jace the Mind Sculptor, Accumulated Knowledge, and even though he was using Swords and Plowshares on his own stuff, just able to get the job done quite easily there at the end.
Sideboard for Keaton Wood, 2 Disenchant, 2 Back to Basics, 2 Pyroblast, 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Monastery Mentor, Celestial Purge, Oblivion Ring, Counterbalance, Red Elemental Blast. So again, you have your own Pyroblast elements. So this is a build of Delver that plays multiple basic lands. Frequently, Miracles is going to bring in Back to Basics against Delver strategies. You think that's a non-starter here? Do you think it's worth it in any capacity?
I wouldn't bother. He saw Austin Collins is only a 2-color version of Delver. He had multiple basics, I think 3 or 4 that he saw. He had an island, at least 2 islands and a mountain. So back to basics, if Collins expects it, he can fetch around it pretty easily. Plus at 3 mana, it's pretty vulnerable to something like Spell Piercer Daze, which he saw both in game 1. I expect Keaton to focus on just killing creatures with Pyroblast and Flusterstorm. Maybe Monastery Mentor and Counterbalance come in as well.
All right, so it looks like the players are underway. We'll get the camera set up on the match here. Keaton Wood has a turn 1 Tundra. Collins led on Volcanic Island. None of those 1-mana threats or a Ponder to start out. Looks like a Ponder from Wood was dazed.
Yeah, Collins without a threat on the following turn, though. I mean, it's possible here that Keaton is just stuck on lands, though, and Collins wants to keep him from hitting the land drops, and it seems to be working out.
Yeah, Daze catches Brainstorm. Wood is just going to miss his second land for a bit here. Collins just plays that Volcanic Island for the 3rd turn in a row.
Yeah, and if you don't have threats here and you don't even have like a lot of mana to work with, Collins understanding that those cantrips are a way for Keaton to really get himself out of a mana jam in the early turns, as well as just set up all the future draws.
Brainstorm from Wood was met by Force of Will, though Wood did draw the basic island this turn, so now he makes a second land drop.
Yeah, that Flusterstorm, a really solid answer to Brainstorm, and here we saw the sideboard of Flusterstorm doing some work against that Brainstorm.
There's a Ponder from Collins, going to look at 3 cards, see what he wants to do. I have a tactical question for you, Todd.
Okay.
So when your opponent's missing land drops in Legacy, and their card to find them is Brainstorm, how much are you considering letting it resolve because of the possibility they just lock themselves out of their land drop for 2 more turns?
0.
0? Okay.
Yeah. It's way too easy to find a fetch land and basically unlock your entire hand, where if you counter the Brainstorm, at the very least, they just have fewer looks, and it'll just take them another turn or 2 to get through those cards anyway. You know, the Brainstorm lock isn't really a lock. It's literally just seeing what would happen over the next 2 turns already. And by countering the Brainstorm, you actually you don't really accelerate them missing those land drops, but you don't really stifle them either.
Yeah. Collins certainly agrees with you. He's checked all the cantrips so far. We see him crack a Flooded Strand here to 19. He'd love to get a threat online. It's Delver Secrets.
Yeah, and he looked at a Ponder that had Delver Secrets and maybe 2 other spells. Wants to get that Delver online, so maybe he had to shuffle away 2 spells, which is unfortunate.
No action for
Wood. Wasteland off the top.
Yeah, no transform, but Wasteland on that Tundra. This Mantle Denial plan is in full force, so we go Wood's way.
Yeah, this is brutal here. Austin Collins stretching Keaton Wood thin as far as mana is concerned, really putting a stranglehold on him with those counter spells early on the Ponder and the 2 Brainstorms, and that Wasteland just a nail in the coffin here for Keaton Wood.
And now the Delver does transform to Lightning Bolt, 5 points across, Wood to 14, plays a second basic island, no white mana, that makes it tough to clean up this battlefield as Wood gets bolted to 11, elemental token generated for Collins.
Yeah, and without access to a removal spell here, he just has blue mana available. I'm pretty sure Keaton is effectively just dead. Austin Collins looks like he even has a Force Will in hand. And looks like he's going to go for Surgical Extraction on Tundra. Wow, that is aggressive, but I love it. He's going to get to see the hand, too. He's going to get to see how Keaton sideboarded, which is going to be pretty important if they get to a Game 3, which they likely will. And he's going to turn off any mono-blue fetch land of getting white mana.
Yeah, that's something that we discussed a little bit in the sideboarding. You know, Monastery Mentor being this variable. The way that the Miracles deck wins the game, be it Jace the Mind Sculptor and Treat the Angels, just knowing how many and which kind of win conditions are the deck, that's a huge amount of information for the Delver player in this matchup.
Yeah, it looks like only 2 Tundras in the list, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, unfortunately for Keaton, he did actually just naturally draw his Tundra early on. And these Miracles deck have a ton of basics, so they're a little bit less exposed to something like Wasteland or Blood Moon or whatever, but sometimes when they draw the Tundra, a Wasteland off the top is enough to close the door when you have this much pressure on this quickly.
The holding for Woods, bunch of uncastables, accumulated knowledge, which he does cast. And Collins had a 2-turn clock. Here's another question. Do you think Wood was just supposed to concede to that surgical?
Probably, but I wouldn't. I mean, the information gained is not that relevant. I mean, Austin kind of knows the gist, and there is a bit of information gathered. You saw actually as Austin was thumbing through the deck, one of the cards he kind of popped up was the counterbalance. He wanted to see how many copies of counterbalance were in Keaton's deck, especially after sideboard, because that card is so backbreaking. If it's able to counter one, sometimes just two things, and stifle the 1-mana cards mostly from this Delver deck.
Yeah, and the surgical extraction is something we really didn't talk about too much looking at the sideboards here. And, the surgical and the Tundra is really more of an information thing. But the way Game 1 played out, we did see accumulated knowledge for 4 cards that ended up happening eventually. Snapcaster Mage, Mission Briefing. So there are a few things to like about that card in this matchup.
Now, on top of that, sometimes you just take away all their Swords of Plowshares, and then they're stuck on just trying to hit you with Terminus. And I'm sure as Austin was thumbing through the deck, he was seeing how many Plows, how many Terminus, how many non-Terminus sweepers potentially after sideboard. Maybe there's a Supreme Verdict he needs to watch out for. And all that information off the surgical extraction has a lot of value. This isn't a graveyard deck, but Keaton Wood does have enough of these little minute interactions with the graveyard that something like surgical extraction is not bad.
Yeah. This player's going to draw up hands for game number 3 here, see if they can keep on 7.
All right, looks like both players ready to go.
Scaldy Tarn, fetch the 19 for Wood. Going to cast a Ponder. See if he finds a basic or not. It's Basic Island. He's been wastelanded relevantly in this match, so that makes sense.
Yep, that's the fear. I never really understood all the basics. I mean, especially in a deck that plays like what? Only 19 lands here for the Miracle player, but just so many cantripping effects. They're going to hit their land drops most of the time. And it's unlikely that if Austin had a Wasteland here, he would just go Wasteland you on turn 1 anyway. And the colored sources of mana might end up mattering. But if Keaton's hand's rolled up with fetches that can just fetch island to island, plains to plains, that's kind of what they're hoping to be able to do every game if they need to,
And making sure you can curve up to 3 and 4 mana can be very significant. The deck plays 7 total basic lands. You're going to find them eventually.
Yeah, some go to 8, some even play 9. This one is splashing red for sideboarded things like Pyroblast. So the volcanic islands kind of take the place of some of those regular islands.
Both players keeping on a Ponder to start here. Wood plays Basic Plains as Basic Plains as a second land. Collins plays Scalding Tarn to pair with his volcanic island. Here's a Delver of Secrets. Wood will cast Accumulated Knowledge end step. The first one not really worth any action. We'll go back Wood's way.
Yeah, Wood here kind of cruising along, trying to hit those land drops, make sure that he can play around things like Days in the future. Trying to find answers to these creatures. Need something, Swords to Plowshares here. Take care of Delver, looks like he has it.
Starts with Swords. No land before the Swords.
Yeah, this is going to leave him vulnerable to Spell Piercing. Honestly, Ryan, I don't think he has another land.
That would not be good. That would explain respecting Wasteland a lot.
Yeah, no kidding. Spell Pierce or Flusterstorm here from Collins is going to protect this Delver's Secrets. Looks like he goes for the Flusterstorm. Let's see if Wood has a response. He does not. Let's see if he has another land. He does not.
Yeah, we're going back Collins' way. Delver's Secrets trigger. Looks like there's going to be no reveal here. He'll draw for turn. Volcanic Island was the draw. Collins has some nice disruptive elements in the hand. There's a Red Elemental Blast hanging out. Force of Will. He's casting Young Pyromancer for turn.
Yeah, I mean, after sideboard, this is a Delver deck. Seems like it has a lot of the right tools to beat this Miracle strategy. And if the Miracles deck is unable to hit land drops, there's a chance it just gets buried by all these Pierces and Flusterstorms.
Source of Plowshares on Young Pyromancer is the play for Wood. Force of Will, pitching Terramander for Collins. And Wood actually Spell Pierces.
Yeah, this Spell Pierce back is not something I think Collins was actually expecting to happen, but he's going to go ahead and burn, what was that,
He had Pyroblast. He's just going to Brainstorm in response, get another elemental token here.
Trying to save that, I think, for the next cantrip that Keaton might play, just because the cantrip could potentially find him a Terminus, while also maybe finding him additional land drops. So well, I'm curious to see how Austin plays this turn, because he actually found Force of Will blue card as well. He can go Pyroblast on top ×2, transform Delver of Secrets, Force of Will this Source of Plowshares. And notice this is on Keaton's turn. So Austin gets to untap, transform Delver, and attack for a large chunk. And now, if I'm Austin, I think I actually just let this Swords of Plowshares resolve. Next turn, attack for 5, and you have Force of Will with a blue card in hand as well as a Pyroblast that you can win a fight over.
Yeah, a lot to like about that. That's what's going to play here. So the Swords resolves. Young Pyromancer exiled. Collins goes back to 20. He's generated 2 elemental tokens here. Will go his way. Keaton again misses that land drop. Pyroblast revealed to Delver of Secrets. Collins draws that for turn. And attack for 5. Wood down to 13.
Yeah, and still missing land drops. He needs to hit one here. He's going to go for a Ponder. That's going to get snapped off with a Pyroblast, and effectively a Time Walk here.
Yep. No resolution on that, no land drop. Attack for 5, Woods to 8. He's got to get something going. He's under significant pressure here.
It's like he found an Arid Mesa. Let's see if he can do anything here with 3 mana.
Plays and fetches right away. That's not telling of the most powerful things Wood could have, but we'll see what he finds. Basic Plains. There's some 3-mana spells in the deck. Monastery Mentor, Council's Judgment.
My guess is the Council's Judgment is coming out here. He's going to just try to knock off this Delver of Secrets, and I think it's very likely that Collins actually goes for a Force of Will here. With that Pyroblast backup, should Keaton want to fight over it.
Yeah, and if you pick that fight, it's really unlikely you get Terminus next turn. He's going to go ahead and do that. Force of Will, pitching Preordain.
Yeah, it has to just be a raw Terminus off the top for Keaton Wood in order for this to be a bad play. Or not even a bad play, but a play that ends up punishing you.
Attack for 5, Wood down to 2. These creatures are extremely lethal. Any burn spells lethal from here? What can Wood do?
I don't think there's anything he can do. I think the early stumbles were just too much for him to overcome. Austin just played this, used all of his resources to just really strangle Keaton game 2 and 3, just keeping him stuck on lands. And that's exactly where you want to be when your deck is full of Flusterstorm and Spell Pierce. Austin takes it down 2-1.
Yeah, Wood just has to pick him up. Austin Collins, he's going to continue to be in first place in this Legacy tournament. 11 rounds in the books. Looking really good for Austin Collins.